Welcome, everybody. I would like to share you a couple of tricks when you do complex brachiocephalic tract stenting. And there's this notion that we don't see strokes after BCT stenting. And this is somewhat counterintuitive because we protect TEVR, we protect TAVI, we protect carotid artery stenting. Of course, there are no dedicated devices to protect brachiocephalic trunk. In the past, I didn't protect it. However, as you get into the more complex cases, you think about protecting the brain. And the strokes do happen. You find it in the literature, at least 2% of strokes after brachiocephalic stenting. You can easily find publications even citing 4 or more % of strokes. Why do we claim that there are no strokes after brachiocephalic stenting? I think that the answer is in numbers. If we do 100 cath or CEA procedures per year in a department, we see strokes, 2, 3, 4 strokes per year, minor or major. And how many BCT procedures you do per year? Probably you do 2, 3, 4. I think that maximum we saw in our department was 5, but it's usually 2 or 3 per year. With this low number of strokes, you need more than 10 years to witness one stroke. So please don't claim that there are no strokes after brachiocephalic artery stenting. So this is a letter to the editor written by Professor Pieniążek from Krakow, and they did unprotected BCT stenting for years until they witnessed devastating stroke on the table, after which they switched to using protection devices. And in this case, you see 2 spider effect filters introduced into the both vertebral and common carotid arteries. So there was a paradigm shift after witnessing one devastating stroke, which probably could have been avoided. Should we use stent or stent grafts? Probably stent grafts offer additional protection covering the lesion. And I think that there's a trend nowadays to use stent grafts for BCT stenting instead of the bare metal stents. And also, by using stent grafts, you reduce redo procedures in those patients. Well, I don't think that you have to overcomplicate things every time. This is a rare lesion I treated a month ago. Very simple, short lesion without any debris, without any calcium, without any thrombus, which I decided to cover only with a stent graft. And the procedure took us 10, 15 minutes maximum. So probably you shouldn't overcomplicate things, but these lesions don't happen that often in real life. This time we use big graft 8/37. How should we protect BCT stenting? This is a great paper by Gustav Ederich when they decided to use 2 wires. One wire over which they introduce protection is the carotid artery, and additional 018 wire to have another support to the subclavian artery. But this was a case when they had stenosis. You cannot do this when you have occlusion. How do you protect BCT? How do you protect brain in cases of BCT occlusion? There are many ways to do that. People use 1 filter, people use 2 distal filters, people can use balloons to block the vertebral and the common carotid. I even came across one case when they took en route TCAR Silk Rose and they used it retrogradely. This is not my case, and that tortuosity at the angle shows you that you may have big trouble by not only bringing in the carotid protection, but I also came across cases when authors had really big problems by retrieving protection thanks to angulation and actually looping of the device. This is another example of protecting 2 protection devices. Of course, they were brought in via brachial approach, one to the vertebral and the other one to the carotid. You can even use old-fashioned PercuSurge balloons that we used to use in carotids. They are not used anymore, but it's also a good chance to block flow into the brain while doing carotid brachiocephalic stenting. So this is our patient. As you see, there is a full occlusion of the brachiocephalic trunk. The patient was symptomatic. He had a stroke in the past. The lesion is very close to the bifurcation, and please appreciate against the angle, the angle. So I was very unhappy to even have the opportunity to bring in carotid protection device. So I decided to use balloons, both for the carotid and for the vertebral artery. So of course, in that kind of lesions, full occlusions, you have to cross from above. You cannot cross it from below. So after a few attempts, we were able to go in with the guide wire. Of course, you need a sheath from the arm for additional support. We snared the wire in the groin, brought in a 7 French sheath, and then we had 2 sheaths to support the intervention, of course, until this is unprotected, as you have noticed, but we haven't dilated or introduced a stent. But next, we have to exchange the 035 guide wire that we used initially to cross for 018 because we need space in the brachial sheath to use 2 balloons to protect carotid and the vertebral. So this is exchanging 035 for 018 guide wire. So this is the setup. It may look complicated, but you have 2 sheaths, which is one from the brachial, one from below 7 French to introduce the B grafts, and we have 2 balloons. One is Diatrac 5 millimeters into the common carotid, which was pretty small, and the other one is Coyote 3/40 into the vertebral artery. One is brought in via 014, the other one 018, and there is still space for 018 wire via the brachial sheath, giving us through and through approach. So we are ready to deploy. Of course, we are inflating balloons, and we are bringing the first stent graft, which is B graft 837. Which is being open under full protection. Both balloons are open in the carotid and in the vertebral. We had to use another graft to be slightly sticking out into the aorta, slightly bigger. This is 9/27. The balloons are still inflated. Sorry, I will go back if I may. So this is the final angio via the picture in the aorta showing you. I'm not sure why the film is not running. Okay, and it shows you a full, complete circulation via both vertebrals, both common carotids. So take-home messages. We have strokes in the BCT territory, and the rate is between 2 to 4 centimeters. I think the stent grafts offer the simplest protection. I think we shouldn't use bare metal stents anymore. We should use covered stents. Whenever you can, especially complex cases, consider protecting common carotid artery and vertebral arteries simply by introducing either carotid filters or balloons from the brachial approach. It's doable, as you saw. It's not that complicated. You should have a plan regarding the sizes and the diameters. And always in complex cases, you need double access from the brachial and from the femoral artery. Thank you very much.